So one of the question in the comment was, I would like to practice meditation for an hour, but after 30 minutes, my mind start to revolt, and then I start doing something else. And the same thing is happening when I'm doing the retreats. So basically, after 30 minutes, I start feeling restless, and then I start doing something else instead of doing the meditation. So in this video, let's take a look why we are feeling that way, what is happening under the hood, and some practical advice on how to deal with this. Yeah. So, one thing is, if I look from my own experience, initially when we are practicing something like Vipassana, which is the practice of purification, and as Goenka ji also says, that when you do something like a purification practice, first impurity that comes up is very gross in its nature. Yeah. And that gross impurities or gross samskaras actually creates a lot of uncomfortable physical sensation. And then we are also not very used to sitting for like an hour and things like these. So it's really uncomfortable physically to sit longer period of time initially. But once we have done few of these Vipassana retreats, like maybe 3 or 4 of these Vipassana retreats, sitting actually becomes very comfortable. So it's not really that difficult after 3, 4 Vipassana retreat to sit for an hour. And after some more time, it's not really that difficult to sit for even 3 hours. I have seen people sitting for 5 hours relatively comfortably. Yeah. So just with the regular practice, eventually we reach a point where the sitting is become comfortable. Initially it is hard, but then it start becoming more and more comfortable with time and with the practice. So that's a natural progression there itself. Yeah. But let's take a look. If I'm practicing for meditation and I started the practice for a year, or like I've done 1 or 2 meditation retreats, and then I'm trying to sit for meditation, and after 30 minutes, I'm feeling a lot of restlessness. What is happening under the hood, right? What exactly is going on? Why am I feeling that way? And how to deal with it? So, another thing that Goenka ji mentioned in these discourse is that every meditator fundamentally face these 5 enemies or 5 hindrances. These are basically attachment, aversion, restlessness, and dullness and doubt, right? So restlessness is one of the hindrance of the mind, and every meditator is going to face it. Yeah. So what happens is like eventually we'll have to overcome it, but it's not uncommon for anybody to feel that you're sitting in the meditation for some time and all of a sudden you're feeling so restless and so impatient that you don't even remember that you moved on and you start doing something else. Yeah. So that's not very uncommon. It's very common that everybody faces it. So that is there, that you're going to face the restlessness. If we go one step more deeper, like why we are facing like what is causing the restlessness. Yeah. So basically, what is happening is that I sit for meditation. My focus is that I need to either focus on the breath or I need to look into the sensations. Yeah. But when I sit in the meditation, something unconscious is start creating distractions. Distractions. Yeah. So basically, I'm sitting on the focusing on the breath. Different thoughts and emotions keep coming. Yeah. The way mind decides which distractions to create, or the way mind decide like which actions to take, is basically what is the most important and what is the most interesting. Yeah. So when I'm sitting for meditation and mind sees that I am actually not making much progress anyway, it doesn't seems to be any interesting the meditation, right? So mind will automatically goes in the direction for something which is, let's say, instead of walking I will start checking my mobile. So there's something which is interesting for mind. Yeah. So basically fundamentally what is going to happen inside, on the subconscious level or unconscious level, there's two different desires and they are in conflict. And because these desires are in conflict, externally I'm feeling restless. There could be more than two. Basically, there's a lot of conflict going on inside ourselves. Yeah. But basically, there is two different desires are in conflict. One that I'm trying to do, that it's my conscious desire that I can focus on the breath. but there is something else inside me which is on the unconscious level trying to take the mental space. And then because of this conflict, we are feeling restless out externally. Yeah. So how do we deal with it then? So internally there's a conflict. How do we deal with this? One way to deal with it is that when we start the meditation session, we set a very strong intention. Why am I practicing meditation? I created a separate video on this. But fundamentally, we set a strong intention that why are we practicing meditation? What is the goal of this session? And also, like, setting an intention that there would be likely a restlessness after 30 minutes, and I would like to continue doing meditation while that is happening. Yeah. Just setting that intention influences actually this process which decides what is important and what is interesting and what we should do, because we are basically consciously telling this is important and this is why it is important and all this. Yeah. So it does actually influence the process, and then we have like a better chance actually to go through our meditation session, or making it less restless because we are making it very clear what is more important. That is one way of dealing it. So for me, I always set an intention whenever I'm sitting in a meditation practice. Why am I practicing meditation and what is the goal for this meditation session? And all, in my opinion, it does help a lot. Yeah. So that is one way of looking at. Second thing is, we also need to understand that our fundamental needs are being met. Because what is going to happen, let's say, if my survival is not ensured, if I'm not financially, if I'm not thinking how I will take care of myself and people that is responsible, that are dependent on me, if I'm not sure like how am I going to take care of these people financially, right? A part of me is not going to feel comfortable because the desire for survival is very deep and very strong. Yeah. So when I'm sitting for meditation, a part of me which is very deep understand there's something more important that needs to be taken care of. And it will be very hard for me to focus on the breath or focus on the meditation object. Yeah. So another way of looking at the same thing is, it is probably a good idea, because for me the meditation is a long game. It's not something I'm doing it for a year or 2 year or 5 years or something like this. I'm likely going to do it for the rest of my life, maybe 30 years or something like this. So it's probably a good idea for me, let's say, that I take care of the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are only few, right? Taking care of my health, survival, and sorting out all the relationship stuff. Yeah. So if these things are clear, then there is actually no deep conflicts that can happen. But if something like very fundamental is missing, it's very difficult for me to actually meditate. Yeah. So obviously I want to continue my meditation practice, but if I'm early in my meditation practice, I don't want to use it as a escape mechanism, right? What I want to make sure that I'm also taking care of my external mm, life, and I'm sorting it out to the point where it doesn't really deep down bothers me anymore. And then it makes a good foundation for me to meditation. Of course, I continue meditation, but I also put a lot more energy to make sure that external life is sorted as well. Yeah, up to a point, right? This is never going to be like fully sorted or anyway, but at least up to a point it is sorted. And that also creates, when I'm sitting in the meditation rest, I mean, this is something that we need to make judgment around, right? If we are actually trying to, if we are not solving something fundamental that needs to be solved. So this is like the two ways we can see, right? One thing is, mind is creating distraction, but the distraction is not important. And in that case, if we set a strong intention, chances are that we will be able to meditate better. But if the distraction is actually really important, then it's better to also invest some time to solve that distraction externally, not in the meditation, but externally, so that we know, like, okay, this is being taken care as well. Yeah. So these are the things we can do to improve our chances of better meditation practice when we are facing the restlessness. But then as we are progressing in the meditation, right, initially when we are meditating, our level of mindfulness or level of power of consciousness is limited. We keep getting sort of identified with everything, right? But as we practice more, we start to get detached from this a little bit, right? And what happens is, in that, as we grow in the meditation practice, we can actually learn to observe the restlessness itself. Yeah. But as we grow in the practice, we can actually start doing it. And then it becomes the object of meditation itself. And I see, like, for different people, it may be different thing which creates the most issue, different hindrance. But I remember for me, the dullness was like a really big problem. And when I was doing these meditation retreats, especially the longer ones, for morning 4:30 to 6:30 session is just a nightmare for me. Yeah, because it's so, I'm dozing off, and it's just like, even though I have rested enough, right? But I could see like the dullness was like a really strong hindrances that I was facing. But you just sit through it. Yeah, even if I'm sleeping, it's fine. It's okay that I slept for some time, or I doze off some time, or whatever, but you just continue doing it anyway, right? And eventually you start, eventually that um, hindrance or that obstacle start to become less and less and less the more you're comfortable to sit with it. Yeah, but at some point you start to learn to sit with these things as you progress in the meditation a little bit further. Yeah, so first you kind of had to make sure that you can deal with it. So because we keep getting identified, but at some point we start using that as an object of meditation itself and learn to overcome that.